The name Wembley carries a lot of weight in the international sports scene. For football fans, it's the national stadium of England's men's and women's teams. For concert fans, it's one of the most famous stages in the world. For wrestling fans, the history is split between two different places with the same Wembley name. First, there's Old Wembley Stadium, where the WWF brought SummerSlam 92 across the Atlantic and gave the UK crowd one of its biggest nights ever. Then, there's Wembley Arena, the indoor arena next door. I'm Alex, and in today's video, episode 7, I'm counting down my personal top 10 wrestling moments from both Old Wembley Stadium and Wembley Arena. Before we cover the list, I want to highlight the differences between the Old Wembley Stadium and the current venue. The original Wembley opened in 1923 and became one of the world's most famous sporting venues. That's the stadium with the recognizable Twin Towers, the old National Stadium feel, and the one WWF used for SummerSlam 92. The current Wembley Stadium opened on the same site in 2007 and hasn't hosted a WWE event yet. Can we get a WrestleMania over here or something, please? Wembley Arena has its own story. It opened in 1934 as the Empire Pool, built for the British Empire Games, and it also hosted the 1948 Olympics. It's hosted hockey, boxing, horse shows, gymnastics, and even the Beatles' last ever performance in the UK. After a stint as the SSE Arena, today it's called the OVO Arena Wembley. Timekeeper, ring that bell and let's get to the list. Starting us off at number 10, we get a Hart family fight in Wembley Arena from a WWF house show in September of '94. Bret Hart and the British Bulldog teamed against Owen Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart during one of the messiest years of Bret's WWF career. Owen had turned on him, beaten him at WrestleMania 10, and kept dragging the family feud through the rest of the year. Neidhart being on Owen's side made it feel even worse because the whole family had basically split into teams. 2 years after Bret and Davey Boy had one of the most famous matches in UK wrestling history at Wembley Stadium, they were back under the Wembley name as partners. Bret and Bulldog beat Owen and the Anvil. I think it's a pretty cool little Hart family chapter to have in the arena side of this episode. 10 days before the tag match I just covered in my number 10 moment, WCW brought Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair to Wembley Arena during Hogan's first year with the company, and it's my number 9 moment. Hogan had crossed over from the WWF, Flair was still the Nature Boy, and WCW was trying to show fans that the promotion now ran through Hulkamania. The finish was exactly what you would expect from a house show. Babyface goes over, crowd goes home happy. Hogan hit the leg drop and pinned Flair and retained the WCW title. I have this at number 9 because the match is more star power than great arena drama. But still, it's Hogan and Flair in Wembley Arena with the WCW title on the line. I think it's a pretty big main event with two huge names going toe-to-toe for an overseas crowd. Number 8 is the newest pick on the list, and I mixed it in here for a little modern-day WWE flavor. On the January 16th episode of SmackDown earlier this year, Sami Zayn and Ilya Dragunov met in an undisputed WWE Championship number 1 contenders qualifying match. These two guys had a chance to move closer to a title shot, and they wrestled like they wanted people talking about the match afterward. The big stretch had both guys down and barely beating the referee's count, Dragunov landing a big powerbomb for the near fall, and Sami finding just enough space to line up the haluva kick. He hit it, got the win, and qualified. Trick Williams jumped Zayn after the match, so Sami didn't exactly get to enjoy the moment for very long, but the chemistry he and Dragunov have together puts this in the conversation for one of the top weekly TV matches of 2026. Number 7 is one of my favorite, less obvious picks from this episode. A few months before SummerSlam in April of '92, the British Bulldog beat Ric Flair at Wembley Arena. Flair had just lost the WWF Championship to Randy Savage at WrestleMania 8, which I attended as a young kid, by the way. But Rick was still Rick, and Davey beating him in London was still a big deal. This match was part of WWF's European Rampage Again tour, where 2 shows were scheduled at Wembley Arena on back-to-back nights. Bulldog picked up the win on the first night by using that famous running power slam to pin the Nature Boy. While they crossed paths in the '92 Rumble and in other multi-man matches like Survivor Series, this is the only televised singles match between the two, and that's why it makes my list. At number 6, I have Triple H against The Undertaker from Insurrection 2002. This show happened right before the WWF name disappeared. The brand extension had just started, the company was days away from becoming WWE, and Wembley Arena got the final WWF-branded pay-per-view before the company changed its name. The match itself wasn't anything notable, it was just another chapter in their storied history. Triple H hit the pedigree and pinned The Undertaker in the show's main event. But it is Hunter beating the Dead Man in London on the final WWF-branded pay-per-view, and that gives Wembley Arena a strange little piece of wrestling trivia that I enjoy. We've cracked into the top 5 now. And at number 5, this is one of the best modern WWE moments under the Wembley name. Bayley defending the NXT Women's Championship against Nia Jax works here because the match is easy to understand. Nia throws Bayley around, hits the big power offense, and keeps cutting her off every time the crowd starts to believe Bayley can get rolling. Bayley keeps going back to that guillotine choke. Nia powers out. She tries it again. Nia fights out again. By the final attempt, the crowd knows exactly what Bayley's trying to do, and the whole building is waiting to see if Nia finally breaks. She does. Bayley makes Nia tap, and she keeps the NXT Women's Championship. Bayley's really made huge strides on the main roster after ditching the hugger gimmick, which I didn't mind, but this match reminds me of a fun time in NXT history. Number 4 on my list is the main event of NXT TakeOver London, and it starts with one of Finn Balor's best Demon entrances. This version of the Demon saw Balor using a Jack the Ripper-inspired appearance for the match, and I think this was totally badass. The match has enough big stuff to back it up too. Joe launches himself through the ropes onto Balor. Balor fights back with the double stomp over the ropes and the sling blade, and Joe keeps hunting for the muscle buster and the coquina clutch. The finish comes when he knocks Joe off the ropes into position, hits the coup de grace, and retains the NXT title. I have this as the highest NXT pick because it has the entrance, the crowd, the title, and a mix of really cool visuals provided by Balor and Joe. To me, TakeOver London felt like NXT was proving it could leave the US and still feel like a major show. Number 3 is another WCW pick that can't go any higher than this spot, and it features Sting beating Big Van Vader for the WCW World title at a Wembley Arena house show in March of 1993. It's on my list because world titles very rarely change hands at a house show, let alone a European tour house show, and this one happened in London. In front of a nearly sold-out house, Vader came off the top rope, Sting caught him, power slammed him, and pinned him to win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Vader had beaten Sting for the title the year before, and their rivalry had already made Vader feel like one of the scariest champions in wrestling. I'm honestly surprised he never won the Winged Eagle belt in the WWF. Sting getting the belt back in Wembley Arena gives the building the legit world title change, not just a cool card or a famous name, and that's why it makes my list. Number 2 is one of the huge matchups on the SummerSlam 1992 card. Before a legendary main event, the Macho Man Randy Savage and Ultimate Warrior gave Wembley Stadium a major WWF title match with that beautiful Winged Eagle belt on the line. Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect spin the match, making everyone question what side they're on. Mach hits the flying elbow during a ref bump. Warrior gets hit with a chair. Savage finally realizes Flair and Perfect are playing both sides, so he goes after the Nature Boy himself. Flair does some serious damage to Savage's knee with that chair, and officially, Warrior wins by countout. Of course, by rule, Macho Man retained the title, but after the match, Warrior chased off Flair and Perfect, and Savage left with him instead of turning it into the split everyone was expecting. For me, this belongs near the top because Old Wembley got one hell of a world title match, with an even bigger main event still to come. Probably no surprises here, but my number 1 moment is the British Bulldog beating Bret Hart at SummerSlam 92 for the IC title. Davey Boy had the whole UK crowd behind him, Hitman had the Intercontinental Championship, and Diana Hart-Smith, being between her brother and her husband, gave the match just enough Hart family drama without turning it into a cartoon. The match delivers on the big stuff people remember. Bulldog hits the running power slam, Bret locks in the sharpshooter, Hitman goes for the sunset flip, but Davey sits down on it, and referee Joey Morella counts 3. Wembley Stadium went nuts. The celebration with Bret, Bulldog, and Diana after the bell is a fitting end to one of the biggest moments or matches in WWE history. This SummerSlam is legendary and one of my most favorite WWF shows ever. I also think having the IC title in the main event here shows just how prestigious this title was. So that rounds out my top 10 list of wrestling moments from Old Wembley Stadium and Wembley Arena. As always, let me know what I missed that you might have in your top 10 list here, and let me know if you'd like to see Wembley Stadium host a major PLE soon. I think a WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble or SummerSlam again, something's got to come over here. I'd love to have you as a subscriber to the channel because I have a lot more wrestling moments in store. On the next episode, we're heading back to the States to check out the Xfinity Mobile Arena in Philadelphia. Thanks for the house.